Southeast England, the most affluent and the most populous region in all of Britain. Everything down south is posh, right? Ha! No. There are just as many dumps here as there are in every other part of Britain. I personally visited 20 of the places with worst reputations in the region as part of my nationwide tour to see which really were the worst places in Southeast England. Number 20, Portsmouth. Portsmouth, aka Pompey, is Britain's only island city. It's also Britain's most densely populated city. We'll start in the city centre today, and to be honest, it's a bit of a mixed bag. It starts off very grand here outside the Guildhall, with Queen Victoria herself looking on. This is the commercial road, which used to be the main shopping area in Portsmouth, until the Gunwharf Quays shopping centre opened, but more on that later. This street is a bit naff and a bit run down, but at least some people have tried to brighten it up a little bit. Portsmouth suffers from a lot of traffic thanks to the aforementioned population density and poor urban planning. It is possible to get about though as a pedestrian, even to the international port through traffic lights and murky underpasses. This street here may as well be demolished and restarted. Every single shop boarded up since who knows when. This looks like a trap I won't be falling for. Just to the north of the city centre is Charles Dickens' house, now a museum, in quite a lovely area on the old commercial road. I've never seen a seagull be excellent to anyone, to be honest. Back to the city centre, and it's like something from Apocalypse Now or Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, a complete ghost town. Hardly anyone around, and everything boarded up, graffitied over, and just a desperate mess in what is supposed to be the most densely populated city in the country. But that doesn't mean that they don't have a sense of humour, at least. Living off my looks. Good one. Oh, umbrellas on the roof. Never seen that before. You can see the many layers of history in Portsmouth with all the architecture that's on display. Some better than others. Portsmouth has a large student population which keeps the city vibrant. Plenty of boozers and nightlife to choose from as well. Portsmouth has a lot of parks. This one, Victoria Park, served as a war bunker during World War II. This huge expanse is Southsea Common, and here's why England won't be winning a Rugby World Cup anytime soon. Portsmouth has a proud military history and memorials are in abundance. The city is home to the world's only hovercraft service running to and from Ryde on the Isle of Wight. This is the Clarence Pier area in Southsea. This is Clarence Pier, so 70s, so ugly, so bad. I love it. If you've ever seen that episode of Mr. Bean where he falls asleep on the roller coaster, that was shot here in Southsea. Enough frolicking by the arcades, let's head past the Happy Fisherman here via Southsea Castle to Old Portsmouth. And this is chiefly why Portsmouth is the least worst place on this list, because for all the stick it receives, not many cities in Britain have a heritage like this. And there aren't many places where one can just stroll around freely amongst centuries old military buildings like this. Even the staunchest Southampton fan would have to admit that Portsmouth is pretty picturesque. Speaking of Southampton, we'll get to there later, don't worry. As you can see, it was a beautiful sunny day when I was in Portsmouth and people were very much enjoying the pubs. Okay, so there's a little bit of rubbish around and there's a lot of people. But here at the cathedral, there was nobody, and it's very nearby as well. After checking out what the Fisher people have got for supper, it's time to check out the Burj Al Arab. The Spinnaker Tower. At 170 metres, this tower dominates the skyline for miles around. Gunwharf Quays is a residential and retail outlet, serving up the usual sort of fare like Cafe Nero, Carluccio's, Chiquito, Costa Coffee, Cozy Club, Five Guys, All Bar One, Banana Tree. You get the idea. For the fashionistas, you've got the designer shops. And for those with terrible taste, the crock shop. Here we have some LGBTQI+ friendly deck chairs, and in this posh area between the Hackett and Ralph Lauren shops, they've put out these sofas for the posh, weary shoppers to relax on. I'm amazed that the drunks haven't found their way here yet. Maybe there's a sensor somewhere that detects super strength cider fumes and security is called when it goes off. Back outside the shopping outlet, and it was a fine day in Pompey if you don't look down at the sludge, the cones and the shopping trolleys. No, I said don't look down. The patriotic boozers were doing a roaring trade and... What's going on here? This is Portsmouth, not Port Glasgow. Sure, Portsmouth is a bit rough around the edges, but it's a decent city. You've got everything you need there, and it's got some great history and a lot of character. Number 19, Hastings. I was in Hastings very early on a sunny morning, so I'll get all the nice stuff out of the way, then we'll move on to the crap that I know you all want to see. Hastings has multiple museums, a miniature railway, picturesque fishing boats, pirate heritage, art galleries, a boating lake, a fun fair, go-karts, okay, maybe not the best go-kart track, pirate golf, adventure golf, crazy golf, some sexy buildings, a theatre, some beach huts and a pier, and some nice seaside architecture. But I know you don't want to see all of that. This is not why you clicked on a video with the words worst places in it. So let's have a look at some of the crap. The best place for crap is the town centre. There are a lot of boarded up cafes, shops, bars, restaurants, etc. In this shop there's even a sign telling people not to break in. Hastings welcomes refugees. That's a controversial subject. I'll leave that for you to decide. Essentially, the town centre is the worst part of Hastings. Hastings is green. Yeah, it certainly smells like it. Hastings is music, if you like the sound of seagulls squawking. Shopping centre's pretty rubbish, and so is the arcade. Generally the town centre is pretty run down and populated by a lot of deadbeats later on in the day. This was still around 9 AM, so they're not out of bed yet. I don't know what this mess is or was. Now this looks really bad, but what's happened here is that the seagulls have got into the bins, ripped open the bags and just thrown crap around everywhere. And here's one that I caught red-handed. Yeah, there you go. You can run. TV was apparently invented in Hastings by John Logie Baird, who has the ultimate honour bestowed upon him. He got the local Wetherspoons named after him. So why, with such a drab town centre, is Hastings not higher up on the list? Well, it's the old town, viewed here from West Hill, that really sets it apart from other towns. There's a lot of these cute, narrow alleyways. This is the old town church. Buildings that are centuries old. Lots of funky little independent businesses. Giant palm trees. And some proper good old boozers. With the old town and the cliff-top views, the seaside heritage, Hastings, yeah, it's not a bad town. And now we're off to La Isla Bonita, the Isle of Sheppey and its main town, Sheerness. Now, I have to hold my hands up here and say that it's going to be impossible for me to be objective on this one. You see, this is my hometown, this is where I was born and raised. Now, Sheerness generally scores highly on the bad town or deprived town list, so I've had to include it on this video, but if it goes any higher up the rankings, I'll probably be lynched by my own family. So let's have a look around the town centre. Well, there's not loads to see. Here's the town clock I tried and failed to climb on December 31st, 1999. And Bon Marché, more like Gone Marché. With a population of just 12,000, Sheerness is the smallest town on my whole list, so it's at a bit of a disadvantage. This is the famous mural, for some reason depicting a merman with breasts, about to blow up the Montgomery shipwreck which ran aground a sandbank here during World War II. Sheerness used to be bustling when I were a lad. Now the main amusement arcade is shut permanently. Even a £2.50 quarter pounder and cheese wasn't enough to keep business alive. The local nightclub had a bank holiday phone party the previous night, and at 3 PM the following day, the phone was still there. Sheerness has a strong military history. Fun fact for you, this was the last place to be successfully invaded by a foreign force, namely the Dutch who occupied Sheppey, briefly back in 1667. Another fun fact is the local delicacy is called a gypsy tart. I hope YouTube don't cancel me for using those words. Sheerness has been a victim of deindustrialisation. The dockyard and steel mill closures over the years have had a devastating impact on the local economy and caused the losses of thousands of jobs. The back streets of Sheerness are a bit rough and ready, and I'll be the first to say that there isn't a lot to do here apart from, well, yeah. And it looks like the next Banksy is coming from Sheerness. There are schemes to help youngsters, as you can see here. This is the Victorian Water Tower, on sale for approximately £500,000. Might need a bit of doing up. In fact, most of the town could do with a lick of paint. There are some nice buildings though. There's not a great deal going on in Sheerness, but I still remember it as a place where everyone knows their neighbours and the community looks out for each other. And that's got to be worth something, right? Now it's time to move away from the sea inland to a place that I'd not been looking forward to very much, Aylesbury. I'd read reports that Aylesbury is a charmless, soulless, monotone, grey town, and it had been ranked recently as the 5th worst town in the entire country. My initial impressions weren't great. Squiggly, crappy graffiti over grey and brown concrete and brickwork on an overcast day isn't exactly uplifting. The local cycle routes are named after colourful jewels, but I didn't expect to find anything rare nor precious here. This bus station was glum in a very 1960s kind of way. As were the library and the council offices just opposite. Bizarrely, the old council offices seem much nicer, but are now closed, and the White Swan pub next door also closed. Market Square seemed a bit nicer. Despite all the works going on. Oh, and look, another closed down pub. Just under this town gate I found not one but 2 David Bowie statues. According to a passerby, Bowie used to perform regularly in the town and drink here too, as did Phil Collins. I asked where they drank, and apparently the pubs had closed down. A recurring theme in Aylesbury, it seems. These statues are meant to be quiet, thoughtful and creative. A few years ago, somebody made one of them look like it was going for a poo. Yeah, this guy. Finally I found a pub that was open, and just across the road is the Waterside Theatre and a statue of Ronnie Barker, who began his comedic career in the town. As the name would suggest, the theatre is by the side of some water, namely the Grand Union Canal, which branches off to either Birmingham or London. Just don't try swimming in the water. This side of Aylesbury could be anywhere really. Vale Park is a nice one with a skate park, outdoor gym, tennis court, a basketball court, and yes, I definitely hit that first time, a swimming pool, and weirdly, a portaloo stuck right in the middle of the field. The park has its own graffiti club who are pretty talented. I know a lot of people don't like seeing this, but for me it's better this than a dreary plain underpass. Children's author Roald Dahl has a museum in Aylesbury and lived in the area. Around the corner though is this poor excuse for graffiti. Nigel, whoever you are, just stop. Parts of the town centre are run down and depressing, like most town centres these days. Next to Wilco, someone's drawn a cock and balls, probably Nigel. I loop back round to Market Square, and while it's nothing amazing, it's certainly not 5th worst town in the country material. I've seen a lot worse than this, and tucked down an alleyway I found this gem. The King's Head pub, established in 1455. This is a clever pun from Buckinghamshire County Council, but it doesn't seem to have worked. You see what I did there? But, ha, you're not the only ones who can do clever puns, Buckinghamshire County Council. The shopping centres were pretty bland and full of boarded up shops. And the exterior of this building is just grim. I mean, look at this for a panorama. I've seen gulags that look more cheerful than this. The final area in Aylesbury that I went to check out was the Old Town, and I definitely saved the best for last. The buildings and streets were well looked after, pristine in fact, despite their age. And the St Mary Church and surroundings were quite splendid. And this, dear viewers, is why Aylesbury isn't higher up on the list. This type of place makes you proud to be British, from a nation of culture, tradition and refinement, a land of... oh, never mind, there's a can of super strength cider outside the church. So it's good night from me and good night from him, and let's move on to the next place. Back on the coast now, and it's number 16, Ramsgate. My first complaint with Ramsgate was that the train station is bloody miles away from the town centre. Well, 1.1 miles to be exact, but who's counting? The walk takes you past some slightly decrepit buildings and closed down shops, but also some nice churches and some more aesthetically pleasing edifices. And when you finally get down to the seafront, you'll find a theatre, fountains, albeit with no water, and some grand Victorian apartments in differing states of repair. There are also these more contemporary apartments for those of you with a fear of creaking floorboards. Personally, I'd prefer one of these. Ramsgate Tunnels is worth the visit to Ramsgate alone. You can explore tunnels that people actually lived in during World War II when the Luftwaffe were overhead. Ramsgate is a proper vintage seaside resort. The only reason I came here for this video was because when I'd made a video about 18 months ago exploring Kent's worst towns, a lot of people in the comments told me I should have included Ramsgate. I disagree. There are far worse places to be. Okay, so I was here on a nice day, but I've been in winter as well, and it's still a nice place. It's also well known for having one of the country's most popular Wetherspoons, the Royal Victoria Pavilion, which is nice inside, but the highlight is the view from the terrace down to the sandy beach and the North Sea. Ramsgate Harbour looks great on a sunny day. I don't think I even need to do any talking here, just enjoy the view. There's loads of pubs and cafes along the front and art galleries and such. Ramsgate played a vital role in the Dunkirk evacuation in World War II. I was there on a sunny Sunday afternoon, so the front was packed, and with views and beaches like this, why not? But we can't just judge Ramsgate on its seafront. Taking into account this was a Sunday, but the town centre was very quiet, with a few boarded up shops and homeless folk, but still some nice boozers and indie shops. One shop I don't mind going out of business is a Bookies. In fact, the British High Street would be a much better place if it wasn't for bookies and vape shops. So there's not much more I can say other than Ramsgate scores big points for its seafront and attractions and loses a lot of points for its town centre. Plus, its train station being bloody miles away, and on the way back it's uphill. Another coastal visit now, and it's Worthing. I know Worthing very well. I lived there for over 8 years, and what I noticed living there, especially after the pandemic, is that it went downhill. Antisocial behaviour rose, and in the evening time the only people in the town centre were annoying, chavvy teenage twats. Or maybe I'm just getting older and less tolerant. Let's start with the goods. Worthing has a few nice parks and lots of nature around. The South Downs are nearby, as is of course the seaside. More on that later. Worthing has a bit of a reputation as God's waiting room, and is reasonably justified, but has plenty of families living here too, mostly folk who've been priced out of living in London or Brighton. The town centre has some grim buildings, so I can understand the law courts, but not the library. There are some nice buildings too, like the museum, which is currently being refurbished, and the famous Art Deco cinema, one of the oldest working cinemas in the country. Now, I'm not sure what to make of this apartment block. Please let me know what you think in the comments. To me, it looks like a 3-star hotel in Magaluf. The penthouses in this building go for more than £1 million each. This statue commemorates Jumbo, an elephant that was washed up on Worthing Beach. The seafront gets busy, but not overwhelmingly so like the noisy neighbour down the road, Brighton. The problem with Worthing is that it's not cheap to get a property here anymore, and the local salaries are pretty low compared to the SouthEast average. But if you have the money, it could be a decent place to live, despite the derision from the Brighton folk. In Bill Bryson's book, The Road to Little Dribbling, Bryson slated Worthing for having a multi-storey car park on the seafront. Well, somebody was obviously paying attention because the car park has now been converted into a pop-up events venue. Generally, Worthing has a low crime rate apart from shoplifting, which is a result of the aforementioned chavvy teenagers. Surprisingly, given the town's senior population, the bingo hall recently closed. And here is a sentiment I can get behind: don't watch the news, watch YouTube, specifically the Absolute Ranker channel. Montague Street and the shopping areas of Worthing are no great shakes. There's plenty of boarded up or moved on. Antisocial behaviour in Worthing reached its nadir when one crackhead was arrested for giving another crackhead oral sex during the middle of the day in this busy square back in 2019. Worthing has a population of 100,000, but it's very spread out, and there are little pockets like this near the town centre that give Worthing a bit of a village feel. Worthing is a bit car centric. Check out the vintage and the sports cars and the bus. Lots of traffic and lots of roundabouts. Worthing has a lot of potential. It's never going to be the next Brighton, but it doesn't need to be. It's got its own character, it's relatively affordable, and best of all, unlike Brighton, you can get a spot on the beach in the summer. And our next stop is...
Heaven.
Wait, what?
I'm in heaven.
No, we are not in heaven, we are in Basingstoke. When you first come into Basingstoke on public transport, the first thing you encounter is this mall called The Moles. It's kind of like a gift shop at the end of a theme park. You pretty much have to walk right through it to get anywhere in the town. The mall itself is modern and clean. Obviously Wilko is missing, but all the normal franchise places are here. The mall, or malls, seems to be the epicentre of life here in Basingstoke. When you finally get out the other side into town centre, you'll find the famous phallic-looking statue, the Woatstree Willie, which was erected in 1994 and has stood firm impressively ever since, despite the cold and despite passers-by rubbing and touching it at every opportunity. Basingstoke was a small market town before World War II, but is now a large town of over 185,000, so I was expecting it to be pretty soulless and concrete, but was pleasantly surprised to see the market still busy. The high street, as you can see, isn't the best. It seems everyone goes to the mall, but there is still a small museum, several bars and a few more historical buildings than I'd imagine there to be. From what I'd read online, I expected Basingstoke to be grey all over, but it does have its fair share of green space. The War Memorial Park here even contains an aviary. Yeah, that's what I thought. Back in town around the outside of the shopping area, plenty of concrete and brick, as you'd expect, but not as visually offensive as some places you'll see later on in this series of videos. Like many of these newer towns, there are a lot of underpasses and roundabouts that post-war town planners seem to have a fetish for. Ew, astroturf. Basingstoke is doing well for itself economy-wise in the IT, telecommunications, insurance and electronic services. You can see how well it's doing by the size of its Waitrose. This part of town reminds me of a medium-sized city in the US, all glass buildings and 0 pedestrians. And then there's this sculpture which is worse than the Willie in town. Basingstoke is not the most exciting place, and it has that new town feel of life revolving around the mall, but there are pockets of historical places, greenery and culture, enough to make it not feel completely soulless. So, in conclusion, Basingstoke, yeah, it's alright, but it's hardly
Heaven, I'm in heaven.
Next, the town that sounds like death, Gravesend. I already reviewed Gravesend about 18 months ago, but I was here on a much sunnier day today and I was hoping for better. I was disappointed. First of all, they've taken away the Tilbury ferry, which made it much easier for non-motorists to get to Essex. Secondly, the LV21 boat stroke art gallery has left the dock. And thirdly, it seems like 0 progress has been made on the flats in the town centre, which means poor Queen Lizzie has to look at this view. This former pub has been derelict since who knows when, and the drunks were already out in force at 10 AM outside the theatre building here. You might be relieved now to hear that that's about all the negativity I have for Gravesend, because for some reason I can't quite put my finger on, I like the place. Wait, what is this? This is Gravesend, not Grangemouth. How would they like it if we went and Morris dance all over their town centres? This shopping centre in the town centre is very 60s. The fact that it still exists with Blue Water Shopping Centre, Europe's largest when it was opened in 1999, just down the road, is nothing short of a miracle. I just feel the need to point out the name of the shop on the left, OK Bags. They're selling OK Bags, not good bags, not great bags. OK Bags. Who is going to a shop called OK Bags to buy a bag? Oh, that bag, that's going to be okay. How is that shop still in business? I don't understand. Sadly, some of the more daring enterprises like escape rooms have closed down, as have numerous others. The Heritage Quarter has suffered a similar fate, but has been brightened up a little bit by graffiti artists who have really gone to town. Sadly, when I was visiting, the market was closed, or so it seemed at least, and the back streets around it are a little bit on the grotty side. This looks like Jack the Ripper territory. A few indie shops in the Heritage Quarter are still doing okay. Gravesend is the place of death for Pocahontas, who died aged just 21 of an unknown disease, likely to be pneumonia or tuberculosis. Her statue is just outside of St George's Church. Gravesend runs along the River Thames, and as such the park here is known as the Riverside Leisure Area. Complete with the New Tavern Fort and some Stalingrad-style apartments. Like we saw in Portsmouth, this is a cool military construction you can wander around in freely, and from here you can almost feel like you could blow up Tilbury across the water. If you've ever been to Tilbury, you'd understand why this is necessary. Litter is a problem in Gravesend. It seems a lot of people don't know how to use the bins. Apart from the Sikh community, of course, who have built this fantastic Gurdwara, the largest in Europe in fact. I can't film inside, of course. Actually, I couldn't even enter as I didn't have the correct head covering. But the Sikhs are more than happy to receive visitors, and they'll even give you a free meal. Back in town, Gravesend does have some more traditional British architecture too. Sadly though, the town, a lot of it is simply past its best. The Thamesgate shopping centre looks completely knackered, to be honest. I hope next time I visit Gravesend it's getting better instead of worse. For me, for the people of Gravesend, and for Queen Lizzie. God rest her soul. Now time to negotiate 1,000,001 roundabouts en route to the big daddy of the new towns, the notorious Milton Keynes. Let's just speed it up a bit, shall we? Oh, bloody roundabouts. Thank God, I thought we were never going to get there. Milton Keynes, or MK as the locals call it, was a real eye-opener for me. Its reputation precedes it, of course, but nothing prepares you for it. So before 1967, when the city was founded, this was a small village. Today it's a city of 270,000 and growing fast. Originally designed to accommodate London overspill and to be equidistant from London, Birmingham, Oxford, Cambridge and Leicester, there was to be no high street in Milton Keynes in the traditional British sense. The centre was to be a shopping centre, aka a mall. The roads were to be in a grid pattern, developed on farmland and tiny villages. The architecture was to be strictly modernist, i.e. concrete and glass. Roundabouts would keep traffic flowing and underpasses created so that pedestrians didn't even have to cross the road. The main boulevard, Midsummer Boulevard, was to be lined up with the sun on summer solstice. It was bold, adventurous, perfectly summing up Britain in the 60s. But how has it fared? Well, there's nothing much derelict apart from this bus station, and not too much evidence of homelessness or poverty apart from this one underpass. I expected to hate MK, but for some reason I just couldn't. First of all, it's a lot greener than I expected. Trees are planted all along the boulevards, and after seeing so many dilapidated town centres, it was nice to see one that actually worked. Now, I'd rather give my custom to an independent bar or restaurant, so this square is something of a nightmare to me, but I appreciate that it all functions well and I appreciate that everything is clean and people seem to be respectful. To get around MK on a bike is a breeze. They even have bike hire and over 200 miles of cycle paths just in the urban area. Some parts were like a ghost town, especially the Midsummer Walk shopping centre. Granted, this was a Monday lunchtime. I definitely feel there could be more art in the city and the sculptures weren't very impressive. I swear Holiday Inns always have the ugliest hotels. Can you imagine coming all the way from Ghana to wind up in Holiday Inn, Milton Keynes? The centre of MK is a shopping centre called Centre MK, and it's very snazzy. It even has one of those umbrella roofs like everywhere else. There's a big hole in the roof here where you can enjoy the sun and sit on some astroturf. I think that just about fits the Milton Keynes stereotype perfectly. The other mostly derelict building I saw is called The Point. This was opened in 1985, Britain's first multiplex cinema. Nowadays it houses 2 charity shops and a music shop, plus a couple of people smoking weed round the back. At least there were when I went round there and inadvertently disturbed them, camera in hand, looking at me like 2 rabbits caught in a policeman's headlights. Just one of 130 roundabouts in Milton Keynes. Milton Keynes still has loads of room to build on, and build on it they shall, I'm sure. This is Escape Milton Keynes, which I guess you would call an entertainment complex. Where else in the world would you find two McDonald's right next door to each other? Probably in the USA, but yeah, okay. Escape MK contains a 26-lane bowling alley, indoor skydiving, multiple cinemas, escape room, dodgeball, trampolining, climbing walls, skiing, snowboarding, casino, indoor golf with dinosaurs, and more. Honestly, this place is mental. Still need to work on those sculptures though. There's places to go for drinks, but it's more for the Budweiser and Smirnoff Ice crowd than craft beer and caipirinha. And what is it with the sculptures in this town? And AstroTurf as well. Ugh. Don't let it be said that Milton Keynes has no culture. There's an art gallery and a theatre at least. Under the concrete and across the bridge is a large park which is actually quite impressive. At the very other end is a theme park for kids, and probably the best sculpture in MK is this light pyramid. The market was closed, which was a shame because I would have been quite intrigued to see what it was like. Apparently this is a mighty blow for freedom and oh come on, that's naughty. Should that be on public display? And that was about it for my trip to MK. What a bizarre experience. I like that it was unique and bold. Britain doesn't seem to have done anything bold for quite some time, and it certainly doesn't have that broken Britain feel to it. Would I want every town in Britain to be like MK? Absolutely not. Let's head somewhere a little bit more historic, if we ever get out past these roundabouts. Back down to the coast now, to the famous, or these days more infamous, Dover. Dover is a famous and historic port town, the largest port in Britain in fact. Lying only 21 miles from Calais, France, which can be seen across the English Channel on a clear day. It's historic, it's patriotic, it's on its arse. At least in the town centre. Shops are boarded up, the economy is depressed, buildings are falling down, and it's always in the news for the wrong reasons. Mainly due to the uncontrollable tide of immigrants. Maybe the town centre was left like this as a deterrent for would-be immigrants. Most people in Dover are employed by the port, which has reduced its services in recent years. The average salary in Dover is significantly lower than the UK average. Dover feels like it has a lot of unfulfilled potential. The council did find money, however, for this water ring feature that I just had to walk through. I'm not sure how clean that water is, mind you. There's a museum or two, plus the famous castle, but more importantly, karaoke. You know things are going badly when even KFC is closed down. Looks like Dover has clucked you off, pal. Amongst the boarded up houses, the pubs seem to still be doing alright. Here's our man Dickens again. Dickens, the Grand Shaft. What next? Another Wight Street Willie. Under this nautical themed underpass leads to the seafront. And well, it's one of the quieter seafronts, despite thousands of flats behind it, and the statues. The famous white cliffs look fantastic in the sun, as did this colourful back street. Welcome to England, states a sign. There should be another one stating, avoid the town centre, or drive immediately to Canterbury. I'm jesting, of course. When the weather's okay, it's nice down here on front, as well as on top of the cliffs. The boats in the marina might not be as impressive as the ones in Ramsgate, but it does have the castle for a backdrop. There's a town centre retail park and a couple of decent boozers. The Dover convenience store is rather inconveniently closed permanently, and yes, I made that same gag last time I made a video on Dover. Sue me. Looks like somebody didn't like their veneers. Dover's a bit of a depressing town. It shouldn't be, but it is. I guess that makes it easier to get on the boat to France. And that's it for part 1. Part 2 will be released soon and be linked in the description. Please let me know your thoughts, and if you haven't already, do consider subscribing. I'll be ranking every region in England, Scotland and Wales this year.